The assumption is that you will understand how to lead a team to be successful just because you were a team member before. Clearly is a fallacy.
Hey, welcome back to the Doctor's Den. Today I have the absolute pleasure of having Mr. Eddy Resnick with me. Eddy has been working in the high-tech field for almost 40 years and has seen a lot with respect to the changes in the industry and the global business. Today we're hopefully going to be talking about things like aging in the technology field and working with a younger manager. So, Eddy, thank you for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you. So I actually would like to try and refocus my podcast a little bit. So I'm going to let you know in advance. We're going to talk a little bit about followership today. And it's really great because you actually brought in two topics, which I think are super relevant to that. One is what happens as you're getting older, but you're still a follower, where you're not, you might have a management position, but you are still a follower. And also what happens when you're a little bit older and you have to follow someone who's a little bit younger, and you're working for someone who's younger than you and may have less experience than you do even. So I would love to talk about those two things. So I'm really glad that you brought those topics to the table. Just before I begin on those topics specifically, if we could sort of shallow dive into like what is it about the tech world that sort of drew you in 40 years ago, and what is it that you think is a major topic of interest right now for people who might be considering going into the tech field?
So the tech field, well, first of all, yeah, thanks again, but the tech field has really changed a lot from when I started. When I started in the tech field, I was a programmer administrator. Started from worked on mainframes as a programmer, worked on VAX VMSs as a programmer, where each of those environments had a clear delineation between who was a programmer and who was the administrator of the machine. Administrator sat in another room, did stuff voodoo from our perspective. We had no idea what they did, and we virtually never saw them. And we did programming. We wrote applications.
So when you were doing that, it wasn't that you were working for the administrator, right? He wasn't your manager?
No, the administrated the environment. In the IBM world, you had a whole team that has to administrate the mainframe, keep it up and running, do the networking and so on. That's all separate organization. The only time you saw them was when you went to the print room to get a print job. In today's world, there is a daily interaction between the programmers and the administrators.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is almost like what used to be a world full of silos, what we call silos today, right? This is you, this is me, and ne'er the tween shall meet. And now those silos are breaking down, where you have no choice but to do joint work, where in the military it's joint maneuver is joint.
It's gotten to the point where we actually created jobs for people who sit in between the developer and the system person. They're called DevOps.
That has to have a huge impact on leadership. Like, people who are in leadership suddenly have to have their knowledge base has to be much broader, and their ability to understand the different sides of it have to be much, much greater, because it's not like you can just get away with, okay, I understand programming and you understand your thing and that's it. It's really more of a, even if I'm in charge of a group of programmers who are working on a project, that project, the ability to work on that requires the leadership and very often, I guess, the programmers themselves to really understand the other side. And the administrators, the administrative side, also needs to do that.
Clearly being a team leader was much simpler in the past. My team leaders, people I worked with, we had a job, a programming task we had to do, and we delivered it. There was very little overhead. One of the other things that's changed, I'll get back to your point, I'm not leaving it, I'll get back to it in a second. No. One of the other things that's really changed in the industry is there are now more layers. What do I mean? Before was we would run on, like today, you run on your laptop, right? Mm-hmm. Most applications are not built that way. Today they run in, that's something called the cloud. The cloud has levels of virtualization, and somewhere there is hardware out there which you would never see in the cloud. And a lot of the customers I work with for today, they're private clouds, so they have a cloud built in within their company. So there's a clearer connection between where the hardware and the cloud exists.
Exactly.
Everything we talked about was simplification, and
Makes sense.
There is nothing simple about today's programming environments. Everything is extremely complex because of the virtualization layers. You could very easily start a project and have 3-4 layers of virtualization before you get to the hardware, and every layer provides some sort of simplification of the hardware, but it's trying to act as hardware, and can or would be an issue when you're working. Now,
all right. So how does that impact your ability to work as a team? Because I would think that this idea that you're supposed to have been simplified, but it's not really simplified. It's actually more intricate in its simplification.
Again, if we go back to when you would write an application years ago, you had what they call the waterfall type of environment. You'd create a spec. I actually did flowcharts for some of my customers. We'd create a flowchart, create a spec of what you're going to do. Then you went and implemented it. Then you went and tested it and fixed the bugs and then delivered it. Today, that's not the case at all. Today, you develop a piece of code that is part of a larger piece, has to integrate somehow. It's being done on the fly all the time. There's no such thing really as versions anymore. You have a version of let's say a Word, but you don't have a version of Gmail.
Right.
Gmail is continually being updated, changed, modified on a daily basis, tested and so on, little bits and pieces, buttons, icons, functionality, and so on, being delivered in what they call continual integration, continual delivery. And so there's no point in time where you can say, okay, stop here. What are we doing? What have we done? No, it's continually moving. The more target's always on the move. So on one hand, you're trying to create a piece of code that is very specific to what you're doing, very clear what is happening. So you get a highly expertise into that piece of code you're developing. You really don't know what's happening around you because you don't have to. So from a developer perspective, you see a lot of people coming into the industry who are coming out of their initial jobs that have very specific expertise in something that they've done, but don't really understand the rest of the world around them.
How does that impact though? But I'm as much as I'm interested in the tech, I'm more interested in.
I'm addressing the word silo. So whereas before we talked about silos, and then we talked about breaking the silos, now we're talking about developers who are in a little container silo,
right?
And they know how to do just a very, very specific sort of, and to move from over, they have a skill set, they have a programming skill set, but then languages change, environments change, and mobility. If you stay in your silo, you're fine. But the moment you move out of your silo, the question is, what have you done to give yourself a chance on moving horizontally into different positions?
Which may mean something like, did you learn a new language? Did you learn a new skill set? Or did you understand how some other part of the overall environment that you are working in, not your little silo environment, but the overall environment, works, and what your new position may be in that environment, and how it may impact that environment?
In my initial engagements with I would come into a new job. The best initiation I had into a new job, day one, I was given a bug in a system.
Yeah.
I hadn't even logged into the system. I was sat down. They were releasing a new release. Here's a bug. Go fix it. I had no idea what I was doing. Right. I'd go and I'd fix that bug. I'd come back, whatever I did, and test and come back with it to the table. Here's another bug. Different area in the system. That gave me, that particular initiation gave me a very wide view of what's happening in the application that we were creating. Today, that would be very unusual. Today, you come in and you're the person doing X, and you're going to be doing X, and only if you take your time and step back from that and say, okay, what's happening the rest of the environment, will you actually see more of what your task is.
And how
So
often do you find that happening? Where like people are being told, hey, listen, I want you guys to see this bigger picture and understand where you fall within the greater scheme of things.
so now we get back to the leadership. Okay, so from a team leader in the waterfall world, you had a set of tools. You were developing something, and the team leader and the team had to know that set of tools. Today, you have all these um, other sorts of tools for your team perspective, right? You have sprints, and you have this and you have that, to try to bring all these people together into one room so that they're all moving in the same direction, right? It's like the definition of an airplane: 50,000 pieces all flying together in one direction. So you got
Right.
all these people who are going to have. So the idea is, in these sprints, in this agile development today, you bring in a person who is a system person. You bring in the DevOps person. You bring in the application bring in your person. You bring in someone who's going to facilitate, and then you say, okay, we deliver this, and they're supposed to work together as a team to deliver that. That
Mm-hmm.
sort of is the response to the fact that people are being siloed and really have very little understanding what the other guy is offering.
Mm-hmm.
I see this a lot when so I do a lot of work in system. I'm a system person, so I'm an underlying person. I see a lot of the cross silo environments, and when people have problems, it's not working. They immediately assume it's not them. That's issue number one, right? It's not me. It's never my problem. It's clearly the system's problem, but they have no idea what the system is, and then they approach me. And then I start to tell them, well, what you're really doing is this, and they look at me like, and they have no idea.
Right, because they're still in their silo and they don't understand
They don't even
how
know.
it's.
So it's some perspective. They don't even know what they're running on. So whereas my team leaders, group leaders, whatever you want to call them, back in 30 years ago, were pretty much very task oriented, and they were probably technical, and we probably worked together, and they may have managed a team of up to 5 or 6 people,
Mhm.
but they were part of the activity. Today, I would hope, and this is not the case, but I would hope that that team leaders spend their time managing the interactions between the members of the team to make sure they're able to deliver what they're supposed to deliver. And that's usually not the case.
I just want to clarify what you just said to make sure I understood it before you tell me what you're seeing today, because I do want to hear it. What you just said is, from your perspective, an ideal leader for a team lead. We're not talking middle management. We're talking about really someone who's got that responsibility over, 5, 6 people. Their job should be to make sure that the interaction that's taking place between the different people involved in whatever process they're going through, with whichever goals they've been given for that iteration, they will help make sure that there's a smooth working environment for the different people and between their team and whatever other teams there are that are engaging in that same movement. Is that what you just said?
That's correct.
Okay.
The team leader has to be technical, I think, for at this level, right? I'm talking about managing a bunch of developers or people who are
Mm-hmm.
delivering some sort of solution. He has to understand what they're doing, and he may even be a contributor as well.
Mm-hmm.
But moment you get past 5 or 6, complexities here probably are going to impact the amount of time the team leader is spending on whether he's contributing or whether he's actually managing the environment between the teams.
Whether he's doing the tech stuff or he's leading, right? That's what you're
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about.
The more people you have, the more time you're going to be doing that. The moment you hit 10, then that's the rule of thumb today in the industry. The moment you hit 10 people, you probably don't have time to be contributing. If you think you're going to be able to contribute managing 10 people and managing some sort of development process or delivery process, you're probably on running on overtime.
Has that been the experience you've had? Because you were talking about ideal type. Now, what's reality look like?
So reality is that in the industry in general, if I want to focus on Israel, there are very few people who understand from a team management perspective understand the requirements for on the team leader. I'll explain why. In a lot of companies, and again, you remember that a lot of people come out of the army and start into these companies. There's a lot of people coming out as developers and people who as delivery experts and subject matter experts coming out of army divisions or coming out of universities. I have a skill set X. They work a number of years in that industry, and they want to get promoted. And promotion in most people's mind means moving out of things that you know into things that you don't know. Moving from being a programmer to being a group leader, team leader, project owner, blah, blah. The vast majority of companies, they do not put an emphasis on training you to become a team leader. The assumption is you are a contributor. Now to be a manager contributor, well, you should know how to be a manager contributor because you're a contributor before, and it's just now managing the same people to me who are the contributors now. and that is not necessarily the case.
Oh, welcome to my world.
So in there are some companies I've worked with where the promotion process requires the team leader to go through a learning process, to gain skills to be able to be a group leader. Sometimes they're more successful or not. I've seen it in the army. That it does exist in the army, but in a lot of the high tech industry and especially in the startup world, people become managers or team leaders based upon years of experience, not upon what they know and what they can help, and that impacts a lot on the ability for companies to grow, companies to deliver larger, more complex environments, and in the bottom line, it impacts on the overall product that they're delivering.
Right.
I think that's why in the Israeli market specifically, you see a lot of companies going for quick exits, trying to make a quick buck, because the management and of a team or the manager of a company is something skills that you only get after either you're trained, which those classes are few and far between, or you've done it a number of times, failed, and failing is okay, right? We know that failing is all right.
That's a learning experience.
As long as you gain experience, right? So at some point you stop failing. You should stop failing, and you should be able to use your experience and be more successful.
So I guess what that leads to for me, I mean, you're really speaking my language when you say, hey, it's these people who are, they're excellent at their job, and people put their finger on them and go, oh, he's gonna be a great team lead, and then you bring him up and he would be really great at seeing how other people are doing their job and go, oh, I could do that better, let me do it. Or they don't know how to take that step back and let the person maybe not do it as well as they could do it, but let them, let your let your team people do their work. And then if you need to critique it or you need to give them feedback on it and teach them how to do it better, you have to teach them how to do it better. It's not do it for them. And it also requires all of that process of learning how to be both a very good leader in terms of what it means to engage in different relationships with different people and get the people to work well with each other, but also how to be a good follower and understand where you are in terms of what's my role of translating greater processes into specific tasks and goals for my team, and understanding how to do that. And I mean, that's what I do. That's part of what I do in life is I work with team leads to help them understand that transition from, hey, I was a worker bee who did programming or whatever, and now I'm a team lead and also a manager, which is not the same thing. Also, I think that there's a differentiation between management and leadership. So I guess
I think there's a synergy between the two, and I think that the assumption is that you understand how to lead a team to be successful just because you were a team member before clearly is a fallacy. As you said, be able to know how to critique with positive criticism and how to create positive environments, and how to take people who have a very specific skill set and integrate them into the overall. These are things that are not simple, and not everybody comes by them in a natural way, and something to be invested in. which I don't think companies, especially small companies, really understand.
That makes sense.
And you get to see people who are in the technology drivers, the CTO of a company, and you go, what the hell? He's a great technologist, but he's got to move a product forward. Does he understand what it's going to take to get this idea that he's got into something which is deliverable?
Right. So I guess that sort of leads to the question of what happens when you take somebody who's got lots of experience like you, and they are now finding themselves under a team lead who is younger than them, somebody who may not have as much experience with. They may be, like you said, they may be very good at what they do, at their skill set, and because of that, they've sort of been brought into this position of leadership, but they are not really skilled yet at understanding how to make the system work, how to work as a team lead.
One thing has to be clear: just because someone did a course on being a team leader doesn't mean they're going to be a good team leader.
You're right, 100%.
So that's the flip side of the thing. So you take your people, you say, okay, I found this company, I found this process, we're going to put these in, and now we're going to have good team leaders. That's not necessarily the case. So you have to be able to somehow gauge the team leader and know if they're being successful, and to verify that who you thought would be a team leader for whatever reason is being successful in this role, and what can be done to make them more successful, or perhaps it wasn't a good choice and moved them into something which is more applicable. The measurement of success for team leaders, I think, is not there yet. I've not seen any good metrics on measuring whether the team leader is delivering on what's expected from them. Because I think the target of what you expect from a team leader isn't clear, and it's hard to measure. And B, I don't think people are trying to measure it. They're just assuming that. So like skip interviews are very interesting. It scares most people. What scares most underlings to do skip interviews and do an interview with your boss's boss. Most people think that's a scary thing to do, understandably so. And so I see that not being done very frequently. I think it's a good tool, but I think it's a scary thing to do. And I don't see good metrics yet for measuring the performance and of a team leader.
I think it's very difficult to do that because it really depends on what aspect of leadership you want to judge and how you and what would be good results. For instance, there's the aspect of individual relationships with each of the team members. There's the issue of individual performance in terms of relationship with your boss. There's the issue of the team leader's relationship with his boss as a follower. There's the aspect of
you're saying it's complex.
I'm saying it's complex, and I'm saying even within that complexity, it changes from team to team and from department to department, and then also from company to company. And in each company, one of the things that I like to do in each company is ask really clear questions, for instance, about what is it they want to see in terms of what would be a successful transition for someone to be a better team leader. What would they see as clear markers for this is an improvement in leadership. This is an improvement in followership, because it's two sides to it. It's you want the team lead to be better as a leader, but it also means you want to see the people who are under the lead acting as better followers, better able to work with the leadership, better able to respond to the needs of leadership and get whatever programs or projects are in place moving, without leadership having to tell them step by step by step what it is they have to do. And the higher up you get, the more intricate it becomes.
You're right. I mean, it's not simple. I mean, and I think there's a place here for innovation, but if you aren't measuring it, then you get sometimes to points where teams don't succeed, and it's not the team's fault, and you cannot you have they aren't being managed properly. They aren't being they're not being given the freedom to do what they're supposed to do, or they're being micromanaged, or they're being not my, whatever is the issue. But if you can't measure it, then you can't improve it. That's one of my things in general. If you you start doing something without being able to measure it, you may be successful, but you don't know how successful. Was
And
I
you don't know why.
20%
You don't necessarily know
successful?
why it was successful because you don't have the clear understanding of what were the impactful variables that made for success. You just sort of know what happened.
So in my experience, I found very few people who are team leaders who invest in becoming good team leaders. That means they spend time figure out what it means to be a good team leader. If you're in a programming role today, there are a lot of metrics to measure programmers. You can find a whole bunch of things that measure, is a person a good programmer. From team
Right.
leaders' perspective, there aren't that, and unless the person's investing in himself, finding out what does the market say about being a team leader, or what is I get my own feedback. I talk to my own people. If I talk to my own people openly, if you talk to your own people openly, you will hear. If you have a good relationship with your team, you will hear. That's one of those things which is a good team leader. Does he have a good hope relationship with his team? How do you measure
Has he
that?
created a followership friendly environment where the
Yeah,
followers
that,
feel like they can be courageous and open and share and express their frustrations or their pleasures with whatever is going
and
on in
how
the relationship and in the team as a whole?
and how do you measure that? Yeah, how do you know if that's actually happening? How do I know when I'm sitting with my team member? Does he feel comfortable to talk to me? So you asked me, by the way, so what's it like being someone with 40 years experience working with team leaders who are either a lot younger than I am, different experience than I am, or even have similar experience, but just haven't gathered the experience to become a good team leader. So I feel comfortable, discussing this with my management. And I think it's important for people to address this. At the beginning of my career, I didn't know you could say no. I thought that whatever I was told, I had to deliver. Until I realized that I was overcommitted, and I went back to my boss. I said, I just can't do this other task that you want me to do because X, Y, Z. And they said to me, "You're right." And then I realized that, hey, if I support my case, then I'm able to manage my time. I know what I can deliver and can't deliver.
So one of my favorite things to teach people to do when they're learning followership with me is that it's okay for them when a boss comes in and says, when a manager comes and says to them, whether it's their team lead or whether it's I even like when team leads do this to their middle manager, like the people who are overseeing like several different projects. It's that ability to say to them, listen, I understand you want me to do this. I would like you to please prioritize because I have this, and this on my plate right now. And you are now adding a new thing. And I need to know where that falls in this list. Because right now I'm prioritizing like this. Does this preempt any of this? And if so, what would you like me to push aside or change the due dates on? And or is there something that I can take off my plate and give to somebody else, or that I can
See,
take away from my team and give to somebody else?
now that
So
now,
they,
now that discussion doesn't come up when you're learning Python
right, of course
or
not.
or C sharp or whatever, and that's a
Right.
skill. That's a skill that comes. It's like when you leave high school. Do you know what taxes are all about? I mean, people don't discuss this with people when they it should be part and parcel of the education process of when someone's becoming a technical or working in the high tech world or in any it's actually it's not specifically high tech. It's a specific it's for any job. How
Mm-hmm.
how am I prioritizing my work? What am I delivering to you? How do I understand my contribution? And it's not just saying to I have X. Prioritize this for me. You have to be able to, you have to say the task I'm providing. I've required these sort of resources, time, people, whatever, and to justify your stance. These are things that
Mm-hmm.
just you don't know, and it takes you years to the industry for the as we say in Hebrew, the simon nofelet, the penny drops,
Oh,
and you say
the
to
penny
yourself,
drops.
okay, if I could justify what I'm doing, and my resources, then it's better. It's easier for me to explain to my management, why this is taking so long, or not taking so long for me to deliver something somebody else is taking more, whatever, right? But justification and being able to put it into priority, even the 4 quadrants, these things just aren't taught
like Eisenhower's matrix of like, well, here I can do this now, but if I do this now because it's urgent for you, here's what I either have to delegate to someone else, or I have to schedule for later on, so I need to know how you're gonna, or I can delete it. Like, can I just not do this other thing? So that, right, how do you want me to deal with these things is really, really important.
So I wanted to come back to the issue of being someone with many years of experience working in industry that change. I think that's a point I really wanted to get to. It's not just so just to put an end to the discussion of working for someone who is less experienced, whatever. Because of my experience, because I know who I am, and not everybody has the same self-awareness, perhaps, or whatever you want to call it, but I'm willing to come to my manager and say, okay, this is what I could do for you. I could just, I could be a team member and just be a team member, or, we could work together. Again, it's not done in front of the crowd. It's not done in front of, it's a one-on-one discussion with my manager. I see this, we can work. I can help you with this. Do you want me to? You don't want it, then fine.
That is exemplary followership. That is exemplary followership. And it sounds like your experience, like the fact that you have that 30 years behind you, 40 years behind you of experience, gives you the comfort to be able to do something which a lot of people are uncomfortable doing, which is walking into a one-on-one with a manager who is technically in a hierarchy above you, but looking at them and going, I would like to be your partner in this process. I would like to be your partner. I would like you to see me as somebody who is here to work with you to make your life easier, make it easier for you to focus on the things you have to focus on, and for me to be able to help you figure out or work with you to take some of what I can off your plate, but also figure out what's important and how we can do things better in the not just technically better, but relationally better. You can use me as part of your resources to do that.
It's a two-way street, right? So it's the comfort, as you said, and also the confidence of the contributor to come and do that. But it's also the comfort and confidence of the team leader to be able to have that discussion. And it's not something which is necessarily natural. People,
not at all.
Many team leaders will see someone with a lot of experience as being a threat.
Of course. Because you're going to take over my position. And what do you mean that you want to help me? You're really edging for being able to show that you're better at this than I am.
So I think from that perspective, the onus is on the person with the more life experience to be able to disarm the manager and say, and position himself.
So how would you do that? Can you give me an example? Like if you were, let's say you right now were going into a meeting with someone and you knew that there was something that you could really help them with, and they are younger than you, they are less experienced than you, not in the technical side. They might be really exceptional at the technical part, but their ability to do the relational part is having some issues. What is something you would do to try and help disarm that potential for defensiveness that almost comes as like an automatic reaction to someone coming in and offering what you're offering?
Number one is to do it on a one-on-one basis, right? Obviously, not to do that in front in a public sphere and not in front of other teams, so on and so forth, and not to take an aggressive or a role that you haven't already worked out with the team leader, right? So I would take it upon myself to proactively meet with the team leader prior to any sort of meeting of this and say, okay, listen, I just want to express, where I think I can be here and I can be in this situation. I can do this. I can do whatever is the situation. Try to offer up, and leave it for the team leader to say, no, I don't want it. Yes, I do want it. And help and work out some sort of strategy with him ahead of time. The potential backlash there is is minimal, I think, because if the team leader wants to be successful, and it may not happen the first time around, right? I mean, this is something
Mhm.
which is a relation being built, and so having these sort of ongoing meetings with the team leader will help create an environment such that you can position yourself in a way that really supports the team leaders. Because what you're really trying to do is not undermine and take away from the team leaders. What you're trying to do is support his role by being able to do things that support his environment, but also maybe offload things to yourself,
Mhm.
and do it in a way such that it becomes more natural. You could turn to be right hand man. You may not want to be the right hand man. Again, it goes
Mhm.
back to the relationship. Sometimes you come into teams and you find that the team leader has a very good relationship with some other members of the team because they've worked together in the past, right? And one was
Mhm.
they're both contributors now. One's a manager and the other contributor. So there's you don't want to get caught in the line of fire, but you do want to position yourself. The problem is, of course, is that you don't unless you're in an organization and you've moved horizontally. It's very unusual to come into organizations today and find to come and be able to be accepted into organization today where the manager is younger than you. That's the real issue. Over the past number of years, I've been to multiple interviews with the same company, only to be rejected later on, which I think has to do with ageism. I think it has to do with people just or um, or the HR environment doesn't understand how you fit in, again, it's as it is with everything. It's a two-way street. The HR departments in many companies are run by young people, usually women, but not necessarily. And someone coming in who's the age of their father perhaps scares them a bit from a perspective of that. And what it really requires is the hiring manager to be able to recognize that someone coming in has something to offer. If the hiring manager isn't driving or doesn't have a charter to bring people in of different expertise levels, then you're going to find very difficult to get in that position where you have a manager who's younger than you. So it's unusual. All of there's this catchphrase in the industry called DEI. I'm sure you're
Yeah.
familiar. I see DEI focusing on the number of women in organization,
Or
the
the number of
number
handicapped people in the
of
organization, or the
handicap in
number
the
of
organization, the number of
or
people of color in organization. These are all things I think each one of those specific types of people, whether it's the feminist movement, the people of color movement, handicap, have been trying for years to say it doesn't make a difference. You may have to adapt for certain things of someone of handicapped environment. You may have to adapt certain things from how they work, but if the person has the skill set it shouldn't make a difference. The same things with ageism, and I don't think people are recognizing that there is a market of individuals in advanced years. I don't know if that doesn't sound very good either. Who are who could contribute, and I'll give you an example of myself. So in my mid 30s, I was wary of the fact the market doesn't would not accept technical people as I grow older. So I'm looking
Mhm.
for more soft skill type positions. I became technical marketing, technical product marketing. I was even reporting up to the VP of marketing for an international company, sitting to 10-hour time difference between me and that woman who was the VP of marketing for telecom for the company I was working with. And then it became a management position for a team, international
Mhm.
team in marketing. And then so I shifted from being very technical to being more of a technical marketing type of a person.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found myself at some point out of work as it was an acquisition, and my job was found to be what's the word I'm looking for? Redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I spent a good 3-4 years wandering around trying to figure out what to do, and I realized that my skill set my technical skill set is still extremely relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was very difficult to get back into the market as a technical person. Uh,
Because people were wary of hiring someone who was older in your eyes.
so in my first position I was hired by a friend in a
Mm-hmm.
small team doing system work, and then I was hired by a company, and one of the that was in my mid 50s. One of my one of the comments made was how you could learn all this new technology. And I think the onus there's onus on both sides. There's the onus upon the technical person not to cubbyhole himself. I go back to what we talked about at the beginning of the discussion. How people
Right.
are in silos, and I know how to do X. I see a number of companies take the person who knows how to do X and keep them in that job for years on end.
Right.
And if they don't round out that person, if the person doesn't find himself looking for things to do outside of that, expanding his horizons, how do I interact with other, if I just stay in my silo, they will find themselves in an issue.
I'm curious because I do want to ask a question here, and I think it's very relevant because one of the things that I strongly believe in, there are people who are not, they're not going to be team leads. They're not going to be managers. They don't want to take on a management position. They certainly don't want to move. If they move up, they only want to be team leads, and they want to be leaders, not managers. They don't want to move into mid management. They're not looking to be BVPs. They're very happy doing their skill set, the technical stuff that they're doing, or helping other people with the technical stuff that they're very good at. One or the other. They're not really interested in looking at objectives and looking at like how to break down strategy of like major. They're not interested in that. Are you saying that those people are going to find themselves with problems because the technology is going to advance and they're not learning, or are you saying that because they don't have a place to advance, they simply will remain in that little cubbyhole that they sort of place themselves in? But if they're okay with that, that's fine. What was, I didn't understand the.
I think it's both. I think the industry in general assumes that advancement means becoming a manager.
Mm-hmm.
That's still the case in large organizations. It's a Cisco, it's a maybe IBM. They have a path for technical people to grow within the company without but keeping them but staying technical.
Right.
Okay. You become a technical lead. You become but you still have a technical role, and you're
Mm-hmm.
able to would say I have a role now where I'm educating other people, but I'm still doing work in my field. I
Right.
have an architecture role, whatever, but I'm still
Right.
staying in a technical field. For small companies, that's a real issue, all right?
Right.
Because they say, okay, we had a product, we started with 2 people, now I've got 10 people. You're the one who's been here the longest, so now you're the team lead. That could be a huge mistake, A, for the company,
Right.
A, for the
The fact that people are doing that even is insane. Like just because you happen to have been here longest, that makes you the best person to be the leader. That mindset, that thinking is not strategic at all. It doesn't take a clearly strategic idea of what it means to advance someone to leadership. So that's a problem.
It goes back to figuring out from a company's perspective and from the person's perspective. What do I where do you? So when people ask you, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? They say, oh, I want to be a manager, whatever. That's a real shoot from the hip sort of answer.
Mm-hmm.
So from the one perspective, it's the there are very few understood paths of how do I keep someone doing things that he does well but advance him,
Right.
as opposed to doing something he does well and advance into a role that he has no experience in, and let's see if he can work that out.
Right.
That's
And you're not providing him the education that he needs
and
in order to fulfill that new role.
And even if I provided the education, doesn't mean that it's a role which he may may do well. So
Right.
just because it's good to provide, it's better than not providing him anything. But then if it doesn't mean he's going to be successful. That's
Right.
I think it's both of the issues which you raise. Being
Okay.
and I think so. I think it's also important though from the technical person to say to himself, okay, I don't want to be cubbyhole. Technology will change. Technology changes today at an extremely fast rate. I mean, when we would upgrade versions of software, once every couple of years, you got stuff every couple of months. A new version's coming out, and
Yeah.
with new functionality, and you got to stay ahead of the curve, and so on and so forth. And you have many large companies just drowning in the upgrade cycle and the support cycle.
Mm-hmm.
People have to recognize in themselves that if they don't keep up a skill set, and the skill set is not, do I know how to program X, or do I know this sort of
Mm-hmm.
language or whatever. It's being able to be adaptable, being able to when people come to me and they say, "You're 65? You're not 65." I'm almost always the oldest person in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and the that comes from being the person who can adapt, can change, and it's not easy for everybody. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but
No, it's
you
not.
have to recognize in yourself the fact that you if you don't, you're gonna be left behind, and that will impact your ability to be a contributor in this world that keeps getting more complex.
Thank you for joining us in the Doctor's Den. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.